Hi friends, welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf. So today we are doing my December reading wrap up, and this is going to be a little bit of a shorter one because I only read 5 books in the month of December, which is a little bit on the lower end for me, but not terrible. I started out the month of December in a big reading slump, and it took me so long to get any books read. Luckily, I feel like I'm starting to come out of that slump a little bit and things seem to be getting better, but we will see how things go from here. And hopefully I can continue to get out of that slump and pick my reading up a little bit more come the new year. And by the time that you are watching this, it is probably January already, so happy New Year's everyone. I hope that you have a wonderful 2026. So I'm going to talk about the books that I read in December from lowest rated to highest rated. So starting off with the book I gave the lowest rating, that was The Starving Saints by Starling, and I gave that 2.5 stars. So I didn't know a ton about this book going into it, but I feel like there were some key buzzwords that had got me initially interested. I had heard this was taking place in like a medieval castle setting, and that had some sapphic characters, and that it had to do with cannibalism. So those things all definitely caught my interest. There were things that I normally would enjoy a lot, be very interested in reading about. And I feel like this book had a lot of potential. Like there was definitely a lot of parts that I did enjoy. However, it just like fell a little bit flat in the execution, and it kind of dragged a little bit. So essentially we're following a few different characters. It's 3 main girls who live in this castle that is under siege. So they are like basically trapped inside the castle, and there's an invading army outside of the castle walls. And because they're under siege, they have run out of food in the castle, or almost run out of food. So they're basically all starving. They're on their last rations, and they are getting closer and closer to starvation. And just kind of, there's a ton of tension within the folks that live in this castle because of course everyone is like starving and angry and also fearful because they don't know what's going to happen once they run out of food, and you know, what will they turn to, what will be their next steps. So I feel like the atmosphere in that beginning portion was really well done, where we were kind of having this like will they, won't they turn to cannibalism aspect. There's also some fantasy involved as well. There's a character who can like perform these miracles, and there's also this church that is like a made-up religion that is associated with this specific kingdom. But before they are able to starve, seemingly the saints of this religion that this kingdom follows show up at their front door and bring them a feast and tell them like, you don't have to worry about starving, we're here to take care of you. And things are really odd and sinister. You can't quite figure out what's going on. So again, that all sounds wonderful, but unfortunately it did drag a little bit, and I just, the execution wasn't there. I just didn't have as much fun as I wanted to while reading it, but I still liked the concepts and definitely enjoyed parts of it. Then I also read No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy, and I gave this 3 stars. So I feel like this is somewhat of a modern classic, and I know there's also a really popular movie based on this book as well. I've never seen the movie, I have never read any Cormac McCarthy books, and I honestly didn't know a ton about them, but I had seen his books show up on a lot of lists of like most disturbing books I've ever read type of lists, so that's what caught my attention. And this one I definitely enjoyed, and I almost wrestled with giving this a higher rating, but I just felt like it was kind of an average enjoyment for me, to be honest. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion because I feel like this is a really high rated book, but that is just my truth. In this, we're following a few different characters. Once again, it takes place in, I think, Texas. Yeah, Texas, like near the border with Mexico. Our first main character, Moss, he basically runs into this sinister kind of situation where he finds like a ton of money and drugs and things like that from some sort of deal gone wrong. and of course decides to take the money, which is a horrible decision. And from there he's on the run from like people who are associated with drug cartels, as well as the local police and the DEA, and he just gets himself into a mess of a situation. We also do get a few other perspectives. We follow one of the men that's hunting him, and we also follow his like hometown sheriff that is looking for him, kind of trying to protect him and reflecting on just how things have changed in this town through like the time that he's lived there. And it was definitely interesting. I feel like it's a lot more philosophical than I expected, and yeah, the writing was a lot different than what I thought. Cormac McCarthy has a very, I guess, like staccato kind of writing style, where it's like these quick short sentences with like that are very action oriented, like he did this happened, and like it's makes it easy to read quickly, but that wouldn't necessarily make me think it is lending itself well to a lot of emotion. But as we get further into the book, I would say, and towards the end, we start to get more of like internal monologues from other characters, and they're kind of reflecting on the way the world has changed and like their own personal regrets. And so it does become quite philosophical, and I thought it was really interesting, and I honestly wanted to like it more, but I don't know that this is one that I would reread or that I really could connect with personally a lot, but I do think it was a good book and I'm glad I read it. I'm moving on to my 4-star reads for December. First off is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, and I am so glad that I read this book. I have had a little bit of a rocky relationship with Stephen Graham Jones writing in the past. I haven't loved everything that I've read by him. I've tried a few different of his novels and novellas, and his writing style is a little bit challenging for me. I can't always kind of catch on what's going on and understand the book at the pace that he's writing it. However, I saw that people seem to be really enjoying this one, and I was very intrigued by the concept, and I'm so glad I gave it a chance because this is my favorite one of his novels that I've read so far. And in I Was a Teenage Slasher, we are following Tolly Driver, who is a teenager living in West Texas, and I think it's like the 80s or the 90s that's taking place. I want to say 90s, like early 90s. And he's kind of like this normal teenager living in this town, but through this strange series of events, he becomes almost against his will a slasher and begins to like compulsively follow the different, I guess, benchmarks of the slasher genre. And it's very interesting, unlike anything I've ever read, and really plays with the the stereotypes, the typical things that happen in a slasher movie or book. Really turn them and look at them in a unique perspective, because like I said, Tolly is kind of compulsed to do this through this series of events. I would say a rather slow horror novel, and very much kind of a character study where we're really focused on Tolly and his friends, and it has quite a slow start, but I feel like that was really necessary in order to kind of display what Stephen Graham Jones was trying to do with Tolly gradually kind of having this transition into becoming a slasher. You had to see the beginning and how he got there, and it also was quite funny, him being kind of pulled into these situations almost against his will, and he was just such an interesting character. And his best friend, she was so obsessed with slashers, and so she was kind of helping guide him along. And it was just so unique to anything I've read before, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I decided to give his books another chance. Then I have A City of Souls and Sinners by Kayla Edwards, which I also gave 4 stars. This is the sequel to City of Gods and Monsters, which I absolutely loved. That was on my best books of 2025 list. And I really enjoyed the sequel. Not quite as much. Unfortunately, there was a trope in here that I don't love, so that kind of slowed down my reading pace and detracted a bit for me. But overall, I'm still really enjoying this story and the direction of it. So basically, we are following Loren Calla, and she is a human living in this city of magical beings. This is an urban romantasy. And she is basically, her friend gets kidnapped and she finds out it was supposed to be herself that was kidnapped. So she's being hunted down and she has to team up with Darian Castle, who is a magical bounty hunter basically, and help try to figure out what's going on, why she's wanted, kind of what's going on in the criminal underbelly of this city. And so the first one was really explosive, had a crazy ending. And in this one, we are following as we're developing into even new situations that are going on in this city. And I love all the characters. There's amazing found family. We also started to get some more different perspectives in this book of both Loren and Darian's friends, which I really enjoyed seeing because I just love all these characters. There was a situation that led Loren and Darian to have to spend some time apart during this book, and that is one of my big pet peeves in any sort of romance or romantasy, is when the main couple has to be separated for any sort of reason. That always drives me a little bit nuts. So that was the reason that this was a little bit slower for me, but I still really enjoyed it and I'm super excited to see where the story goes next. So I'll definitely be continuing this series. Then my highest rated book for December really snuck up on me. I was not expecting this, but I feel like this year I've been getting more into my contemporary romance era and like dipping my toes a little bit into sports romance as well. So I decided to try out Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. And I had heard some different things about this book, a lot of positive reviews, people saying that this had a lot of like emotional impact on them. And I feel like with contemporary, I need there to be something a little bit more to kind of grab my attention, I guess. So I was intrigued by that. And I'm so glad I picked it up because I ended up giving it 5 stars and absolutely fell in love with these characters. And so this is a hockey romance. And our main characters are Reese, who is on this college hockey team, and Sadie, who is on the college figure skating team. That sounds like a pretty, typical hockey romance setup, but there's a lot more going on with these characters. There's a lot of mental health rep and a lot of like deeper issues going on. So Sadie is basically raising her 2 younger brothers on her own, as her father is an alcoholic and really can't be depended upon. So Sadie has basically spent her whole life trying to keep this balance of keeping her brothers with her and being able to take care of them and not have them taken away. And on the other hand, Reese, he was in a really bad hockey injury in the last season, and he is kind of suffering from almost like PTSD from that incident, I would say, and really struggling to be able to get back on the ice. And the two of them meet and instantly have this connection, but it's definitely like he falls first. Reese is so obsessed with Sadie. She gives him such a calming energy and he really like heals from being around her. And on the other hand, Sadie is so guarded and so hesitant to let anyone into her life. So there is a lot of push and pull in that regard. And it's honestly such a beautiful romance. There's so much like found family and there's just so much love. Reese like will really do anything for Sadie and will always be there and show her that he cares about her and that he is not going to abandon her the way other people in her life have. And I just thought it was truly a beautiful love story. This is an interconnected standalone series. And I kind of could see in this book how some of the side characters were getting set up to be together. And I always think that's a fun time when I do enjoy a book in like a series that I'm like, oh, this was so good. And now I'm excited to potentially continue because I think the next book is going to be about some of their friends and I'm excited to see their romance as well. So I'm feeling excited about this series and having a new sports romance to be interested in. So those were the books that I read in December. I would love to hear if you have read any of these books, what your opinion was. And I will see you more in the new year. Bye everyone!